We begin the day with Trump's tariff threats and the political consequences. Recently, when U.S. President Donald Trump imposed and then suspended tariffs on all Canadian products, it got many there thinking, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Well, Canada's leaders are apparently rethinking their ties to the EU. Is it possible for Canada to become the 28th member of the European Union?
Sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
In a stunning shift that's reshaping North American trade, Canada is turning away from its longtime U.S. partnership. As tensions mount over American tariff threats, Canadian businesses are forging new alliances with the European Union. This isn't just a policy adjustment. It's an economic rebellion that threatens decades of U.S.-Canada market dominance. The implications of this pivot reach far beyond border trade, as Canadian companies embrace tariff-free European markets. But just before we get to it, drop a like on the video, and be sure to subscribe for more news on the U.S.-Canada trade relations.
Their partner, also targeted by Trump's tariffs, an ally on the other side of the Atlantic, the European Union. Canada's largest daily newspaper, the Toronto Star, has posed a question that not too long ago would have seemed fanciful. It ran with the headline, "Donald Trump drives a wedge between Canada and the U.S. with a trade war. Could we join the EU?"
The unraveling of North America's most powerful economic partnership signals a historic turning point. After generations of prosperous cross-border commerce, mounting political pressures and trade disputes are shattering long-standing business relationships between these neighboring nations.
In 2018, he said he's going to use the same national security tariffs on Canadian auto parts and cars. And we knew then it was an existential threat, and we thought, okay, hold on. What is the threat of a transmission that goes into an American pickup truck in Oshawa and gets sold to a consumer in Texas? If that was something that the Canadian government did or the Ontario government did, we would challenge that in court, the underpinning of that argument. And we thought in 2018 we had a very good argument. And the question was, can you get standing? If you're a Canadian auto parts trade association or suppliers, could you get standing? Well, there are 156 Canadian-owned auto parts plants in 19 U.S. states with 50,000 employees.
Behind the headlines of diplomatic tensions lies a stark economic reality. 3/4 of Canada's exports flow south across the U.S. border. This massive trade dependency, once seen as the bedrock of North American prosperity, has become Canada's greatest vulnerability. As U.S. policy shifts send shockwaves through Canadian industries, business leaders are frantically searching for alternatives.
So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country. As an example, Canada, if we make it in the United States, we don't need it to be made in Canada. We'll have the jobs. That's why Canada should be our 51st state. We'll bring back industries, and we'll bring back our jobs, and we'll make America industry great again.
The tremors from Washington's trade policies have unleashed an economic earthquake across Canadian industries. When the Trump administration slammed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, it shattered decades of market stability. Even after some restrictions were lifted, the damage was done. Trust had crumbled. As threats of harsher measures loomed, panic spread through Canadian boardrooms. The message was clear. Decades of economic partnership could vanish with a single presidential tweet. This new reality forced Canadian leaders to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their economic future couldn't rest solely in American hands.
The Economist has been pondering why Canada should join the EU. Europe needs space and resources. Canada needs people. Let's deal. Well, leading voices in the European Union have also been getting behind it. European Parliament member Guy Verhofstadt posting on X, "We in Europe remember that Canadians died to liberate our continent. In the face of Trump's madness, the EU stands with Canada now. There is no reason why EU membership should be off."
As American trade walls rise, Europe's doors swing wide open. The European Union's offer of zero tariff trade presents Canada with a lifeline away from U.S. market turbulence. This isn't just a new trade deal. It's Canada's economic declaration of independence.
EU, is it possible for Canada to become the 28th member of the European.
The numbers tell a story of transformation. Since the signing of CETA in 2016, trade between Canada and Europe has surged by 66%, reshaping traditional market patterns. This isn't just about avoiding American tariffs. It's about building a new economic future. Canadian businesses are discovering that European partnerships offer something the U.S. relationship no longer can: certainty.
So U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods may be paused, but a new survey shows the damage is already done to how people in our country view the neighbors to the south. So according to exclusive Ipsos polling, 68% of Canadians say they think less of the United States because of Donald Trump's threats. And less than half, 47%, say they are confident Canadian politicians can manage the U.S. president. 58% say their personal.
The tremors of Canada's European pivot are sending aftershocks through America's economic heartland. Industries that once relied on seamless cross-border commerce now face a stark new reality. Manufacturing plants that for decades sourced materials from Canadian suppliers are watching their supply chains unravel. Agricultural processors who built their business models around Canadian imports are scrambling to find alternatives. This isn't just about paperwork and logistics. It's about the fundamental restructuring of North American commerce. In boardrooms across the United States, executives are grappling with an uncomfortable truth. Their Canadian partners now have better options. With zero tariff access to European markets, Canadian companies are redirecting their resources across the Atlantic. American businesses, once accustomed to preferential treatment, now find themselves competing with European buyers for Canadian resources. The impact cuts deeper than just raw materials. Established manufacturing partnerships, some spanning generations, are being severed as Canadian companies pivot toward European opportunities. This disruption extends beyond traditional industries. The digital economy, once dominated by U.S.-Canada collaboration, faces new challenges as the U.S. moves to impose retaliatory digital services taxes. These taxes, set to take effect in April 2025, threaten to create a digital divide between the longtime allies. For American companies, the costs are mounting. Supply chain restructuring requires significant investment in new partnerships and infrastructure. Higher prices for Canadian materials are driving up production costs, forcing difficult decisions about pricing and market strategy. Some businesses face the prospect of completely reimagining their operations without Canadian partnerships they've relied on for decades. The ripple effects reach far beyond corporate balance sheets. Communities built around cross-border trade are watching their economic foundation shift. Border towns that thrived on U.S.-Canada commerce are seeing their business landscape transform. Distribution centers, transportation hubs, and support services, all part of the intricate web of cross-border trade, must now adapt to a new economic reality or risk becoming obsolete. This transformation marks more than just a temporary trade dispute. It represents a fundamental shift in North American economic power dynamics. As Canadian businesses forge stronger ties with Europe, the leverage once held by U.S. markets diminishes. The message is clear. The era of assumed U.S.-Canada economic partnership is ending, replaced by a new global trade landscape where loyalty follows opportunity, not tradition.
But the recent events with Mr. Trump musing about 51st states, threatening tariffs, already imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum, it's caused a lot of self-reflection in Canada about how much this nation relies on exports to the United States.
Picture an American factory that's relied on Canadian steel for 30 years. Now its supply costs are skyrocketing as those same materials flow to European buyers at zero tariffs. This isn't a hypothetical. It's the new reality reshaping North American commerce. The economic alliance between the U.S. and Canada, once considered unshakable, is crumbling under the weight of political uncertainty. Every redirected shipment, every canceled contract, every new European partnership chips away at decades of economic cooperation. The transformation extends beyond business ledgers into the heart of diplomatic relations. What's at stake isn't just trade, it's trust. As Canadian businesses forge new European partnerships, they're not just seeking better tariff rates. They're voting with their supply chains. Each deal with a European buyer signals a step away from traditional U.S. partnerships, creating distance that may prove impossible to bridge. The political tensions driving this shift run deeper than simple market decisions. Canada's move toward European markets reflects a fundamental reevaluation of its economic independence. For the first time in generations, Canadian business leaders are questioning the wisdom of maintaining such close ties with an unpredictable southern neighbor. This isn't just about finding new markets, it's about redefining North American economic power dynamics for decades to come.
Oh, yes, and reflecting very much upon the nature of our relationship with our largest trading partner. I mean, it's important to understand that Canada exports something north of 75% of our goods and services to our neighbor to the south.
Who could have imagined Canadian politicians seriously discussing European Union integration just a decade ago? Yet here we are, watching a remarkable transformation in global trade alliances. This isn't just diplomatic talk. It's a strategic revolution reshaping North America's economic landscape. The partnership between Canada and the EU transcends traditional trade agreements. Europe gains access to vast natural resources and a stable political ally, while Canada secures a predictable trading partner immune to political whims. Through CETA, this relationship has evolved into something few thought possible, a genuine alternative to U.S. market dominance. Canadian businesses are discovering unprecedented opportunities in European markets. From technology firms to natural resource companies, the stability of EU trade agreements offers something increasingly rare in the age of American protectionism: certainty. Meanwhile, European nations, grappling with their own economic challenges post-Brexit, find in Canada a partner rich in resources and committed to free trade principles. This isn't just about avoiding American tariffs. It's about building a new economic future where Canada's prosperity doesn't hinge on U.S. policy decisions.
Well, I can't say that it's anywhere top of the agenda right now, but we live in odd times, don't we?
Yeah, we do live in odd times. Yeah, you could put it that way, yeah. You know that the president, U.S. President Donald Trump, he has proposed Canada become the 51st U.S. state. Is there any appetite, Sean? Is there any appetite in Canada for that happening?
Brexit's shockwaves have created unexpected opportunities in the shifting landscape of global trade. As Britain charted its course away from the EU, Canada stepped into the void, strengthening economic bonds with both sides of the Channel. This strategic positioning isn't just opportunistic, it's transformative. The partnership between Canada and the UK has evolved into something neither nation imagined pre-Brexit. Canadian businesses, already adapting to European markets through CETA, find themselves uniquely positioned to bridge the gap between Britain and the continent. From technology to manufacturing, finance to agriculture, new trade corridors are opening daily. But a shadow looms over these emerging partnerships: the fractured US-Canada relationship. As Canadian companies deepen their European ties, the prospect of returning to the old North American trade model grows dimmer. The trust shattered by unpredictable tariffs and policy shifts can't be easily rebuilt. Business leaders who once viewed American markets as essential now see them as optional, or worse, unreliable. The damage runs deeper than balance sheets and trade statistics. Decades of economic cooperation, built on mutual trust and shared prosperity, have been undermined by protectionist policies and political posturing. While diplomatic channels remain open, the exodus of Canadian business toward European markets continues unabated. With each passing month, the path back to the old U.S.-Canada trade relationship becomes harder to navigate.
It was formed in 1867 largely to avoid becoming annexed by the United States. So it's an integral part of Canadian identity to be not American, much as we rely on and are so closely tied to the United States.
Time is running out for the United States to reclaim its position as Canada's dominant trading partner. As Canadian businesses strengthen their European ties, a new economic reality takes shape, one where American influence diminishes with each passing day. The implementation of CETA has opened doors that can't easily be closed, offering Canadian companies a stability that U.S. markets no longer provide. The consequences are already rippling through American industries. Companies that once enjoyed preferential access to Canadian resources now find themselves competing with European buyers. The cost? Skyrocketing prices for everything from lumber to rare earth minerals. These aren't just market fluctuations, they're the new normal. With another U.S. election cycle approaching, uncertainty looms larger than ever. Canadian businesses, burned by past policy shifts, are abandoning wait-and-see approaches in favor of concrete European partnerships. Manufacturing supply chains are being rewired, energy contracts rewritten, and investment strategies reimagined, all pointing away from traditional U.S. relationships. The practical implications hit hard. American companies face higher costs, longer wait times, and increased competition for resources they once took for granted. As Canadian firms redirect their focus across the Atlantic, U.S. businesses scramble to secure alternative suppliers, often at premium prices. This isn't just about adapting to new market conditions. It's about surviving in a world where Canada's economic loyalty no longer automatically points south.
Again, with Donald Trump, hard to predict. Mr. Trudeau gave him at least the semblance of a win a week or so ago by re-announcing more than $1 billion Canadian worth of measures to tighten up the border. It should be said he had announced them some weeks before, but of course, working in Trump land, you want to make sure he has the feeling that he's negotiated a good deal, so they gave that.
The ripples of Canada's European pivot are transforming into waves, reshaping global trade patterns far beyond North American shores. Nations worldwide are watching closely as Canada successfully navigates its economic independence from U.S. markets. This isn't just about one country diversifying its trade relationships. It's about challenging the very foundations of American economic dominance. In Asian markets, business leaders are taking notes. Canada's strategic shift proves that alternatives to U.S.-centric trade exist and can thrive. Countries that once viewed American markets as indispensable are now exploring their own paths to economic independence. The precedent is clear. If Canada, with its deeply integrated North American supply chains, can pivot successfully, others can follow. The transformation extends beyond mere trade statistics. Investment patterns are shifting as global capital seeks opportunities in this new economic landscape. European firms, energized by stronger Canadian partnerships, are expanding their North American presence, not through U.S. markets, but through Canadian ones. Meanwhile, American companies find themselves competing in a marketplace where U.S. dominance can no longer be taken for granted. This shift carries profound implications for global economic stability. As more nations consider following Canada's example, the international trade ecosystem grows more diverse and resilient. Markets once tethered to U.S. economic policy now see viable alternatives. From South American resource producers to Asian manufacturers, business leaders are reimagining their trade relationships. The success of Canada's European partnership serves as a blueprint for economic independence. Countries watching from the sidelines see a clear path forward: strong trade agreements, diversified partnerships, and reduced dependence on any single market. This isn't just about avoiding U.S. tariffs. It's about building a more balanced global economy. For American policymakers, the warning signs are clear, but largely unheeded. As more nations explore alternatives to U.S.-dominated trade relationships, America's economic leverage weakens. The tools that once guaranteed U.S. market dominance, access to the world's largest consumer market, the dollar's reserve currency status, established supply chains, face unprecedented challenges. This isn't a temporary shift in trade patterns. It's the beginning of a new global economic order where U.S. influence can no longer be assumed.
Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Together, we've built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen. A relationship that has been the envy of the world. Yes, we've had our differences in the past, but we've always found a way to get past them. If President Trump wants to usher in a new golden age for the United States, the better path is to partner with Canada, not to punish us.
History may record this moment as the point when Canada's economic destiny shifted decisively away from its southern neighbor. For generations, the U.S.-Canada trade relationship stood as a model of international cooperation, powered by geographical proximity and shared values. That era is ending. The transformation wasn't inevitable. It took waves of political uncertainty and aggressive trade policies to push Canadian businesses toward European alternatives. Now, as these companies forge new partnerships across the Atlantic, the damage to North American trade relations appears irreversible. What began as a defensive response to U.S. tariffs has evolved into a fundamental reimagining of Canada's economic future. Canadian policymakers, once focused on managing U.S. trade relationships, now find themselves orchestrating a complex pivot toward European markets. The EU has emerged not just as an alternative trading partner, but as a primary one. This shift runs deeper than trade statistics. It represents a profound change in how Canada sees its place in the global economy. The implications extend far beyond border crossings and balance sheets. As Canadian businesses strengthen their European ties, they're building new supply chains, establishing new partnerships, and creating new economic realities. These changes aren't easily undone. With each new European trade agreement, each new cross-Atlantic partnership, the likelihood of returning to the old U.S.-dominated trade model grows more remote.
Together, we've built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen. A relationship that has been the envy of the world. Yes, we've had our differences in the past, but we've always found a way to get past them. If President Trump wants to usher in a new golden age for the United States, the better path is to...
The transformation of North American trade isn't just about shifting partnerships. It's about redefining a nation's economic identity. While Canada maintains essential connections with U.S. markets, the days of economic dependence are over. This isn't a temporary response to trade tensions. It's a permanent realignment of global commerce. As Canadian businesses embrace tariff-free European trade, a new economic reality takes shape. The question isn't whether Canada will maintain its European pivot, but how far this transformation will reshape global trade patterns for generations to come.